Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Bob Doyle, looking forward to connecting with you, talking about your work in the book and in the movie The Secret. You are the owner of Boundless Living Incorporated. And we're going to talk about how to get our brain rewired today, which is something that you specialize in, personal transformation through brain rewiring.
Yeah.
What is just define what that means? What does that mean today? Because I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to rewire their brain, especially in this kind of post-COVID world.
Right. Well, we literally, to get right to it, when I look at results in people's lives, the results
Yeah.
that you get in your life are ultimately the result of action you're taking, who you're being in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so and who you be in the world is determined by how your brain is wired, how you've been programmed, what are your belief systems about prosperity, about lack, and everything in between. What was installed in you and is running you on autopilot right now.
Yeah. But let's talk about that because um, autopilot versus being your own pilot, right? And so, as you're talking about what's been kind of wired in you versus what your soul are, you know, talk about kind of how people can kind of, get to the element of who they are without hearing the voice of their father, their mother, their
Sure.
grandfather. Yeah, right. I mean, how do you get there first?
Well, I think they have that inner calling. It's why we get, anxious or even depressed when we're not able to fully express what's in us to express. I am driven by creative self-expression, and that can show up in my business and my relationships and my hobbies. And if I believe that if a person is not expressing themselves creatively, that's when that kind of depression sets in. And that all happens as a result of their wiring, what the meaning they make out of every situation. And so, after 20 years of teaching law of attraction, that's what The Secret was about. And there's all this conversation around energy and vibration, very kind of, invisible stuff, a lot of leaps of faith people had to take. When it comes right down to it, it doesn't matter what approach you take. If personal transformation is going to last for you, it's going to be because your brain was permanently rewired so that your new autopilot behavior puts you into action in a way that you're going to get the results you want. Right now, you're on autopilot. You are programmed mostly unconsciously, very early in life. And if you're not conscious of the impact of your wiring, and most importantly, that it can be changed, you're going to feel at the mercy of your situations. And so, what I help people do is to wake up really to their autopilot wiring and to see that what they believe is free will
Yeah.
many times is not. And what we want to do is teach you how to have true will.
Yeah, I like that. Let me ask you a question. So let's talk about this. I love the law of attraction. I've read The Secret. I could name tons of other books and people that I've read and studied and, et cetera, et cetera. But the law of attraction and rewiring and talking about waking up and getting out of autopilot, I love all this stuff. But then you can't just manifest. I want to talk to the person, you can't just manifest it, think it, and then not execute, right? Not do the activities and take the action on a consistent basis to actually make things happen, right? So I believe in the universe giving you things, but what are your kind of talk on the whole idea of like once you're rewired, now you got to kind of do the consistent, execution to
Well,
actually bring it to you.
you have to do the consistent execution to get rewired. And this is
Correct.
the reason I stopped focusing on teaching people the law of attraction, because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're focused. People are so focused on the wrong thing, the ins and outs. Is my vision board right? How long do I meditate? Oh my God, I had a negative thought. And it's just all this layers of stuff. And all of
Right.
that is impacting their ability to just be.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to understand the ins and outs of gravity for the glass to hit the floor when you let go of it. And it's the
Right.
same thing here. We're just learning how to be someone else, just like we learned a new language and learned how to walk with all the stumbling blocks and the discomfort.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing you say is when you talk about be someone else, you're talking about actually being yourself.
Correct.
Right. Right.
A
Right.
different version of who you're being. It's about analyzing the gap of who am I being now to get these results, and who would I need to be to get the results that I truly want.
Right. The way I look at things as a coach is what's your highest potential, and you've got to find your own inner pilot to actually reach your highest potential. But I want to talk about the space that you need to create, because once you rewire, the old wires, they always seem to kind of like pop up, usually when you don't want them. And is it about pushing it away or creating the space for them to serve to be? And like you said, like to just be, sometimes you
Yes.
just got to be. So can you kind
It's
of talk on that? Yeah.
absolutely. It's the difference between observing them and then
Yeah.
becoming a victim to them.
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to have, because the wiring would take a very long time for it to just fade away completely. It can, it's just like we can look at aspects of our personality who we were 5 years ago and wonder how we ever thought that way. But the wiring takes a little bit of time to take place. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No worries.
I got off track there because I was choking. I
Yeah.
apologize. If you can just
No worries.
rephrase that last part again, I will get right back with you.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, creating the space to allow the old wiring to kind of
Yes.
still be well
Yes.
without it throwing you, backwards.
It's when we get engaged emotionally that all the chemistry happens, and then we get sucked back in. And when we keep going back and forth like that, putting our energetic or emotional attention on those things, we're not, we're not going to progress because we're giving both sets of neural pathways power. We're going to be susceptible. So it's
Yeah.
really about learning how to go into observation mode the moment you have that trigger, when you see that you're in autopilot.
Yeah. I like that you bring that up. I love talking about being an observer. I read a lot of Eckhart Tolle. I love his work. And one of the things he really talks about is being an observer of yourself. That when you become that observer is when is kind of that first step of really deep awareness. And so, it's almost like, in the way I explain it to people is, seeing yourself as a character in a movie, kind of like zooming out a little bit. And so, because then it just changes, as you're talking about, the energy of it. So can you kind of talk on that for a little bit and give me your
Yes,
thoughts?
that's the first skill we teach people, is to get into that observation mode where there is no judgment, there is no
Yeah.
time, there's no age, it's just your total, it's your pure, it's as close to your pure consciousness as you can get. And it's a gift to be able to do that, to be able
Yeah.
to say, wow, look at my autopilot in action. To really say, well, this happened. She gave me that look on her face and it triggered all this stuff. And now I'm about to behave like this. I know it doesn't get me where I want to go. What's another way I could behave? Now, part of the work I do is have people be prepared for that moment. So they're not just like,
Yeah.
okay, I observe it, but now what? But
Right.
it's in that consistently making new choices
Right.
over and over, whether
Over and over
you
again.
actually are doing them, or the key is also visualizing them in your
Yeah.
own time, using this amazing brain of ours to grow those neural pathways without actually doing this thing, so that you can when you go out there and it happens, you've rehearsed it and you know what to do
Yeah.
and who to be.
Yeah, but let's talk about the now what, because as we're talking about this, zooming out, being an observer, being more aware, understanding who your inner pilot is, getting off of autopilot. Then I think the now what, right, is the tough part. That then the work begins. And
Yes.
so kind of walk me through your process at that
Well,
point.
again, this is about using your imagination to sort of look into the future and visualize the person you wish to become. And if it helps you to start with the results and ask yourself, what would I need to do? Who would I need to be to get those results? Now, this is the first approach, because some people are very clear, like, I know I'm not great with my integrity. I don't show up when I say, I know, so they have very clear ideas of how they know they could change their behavior to become that person. But
Yeah.
very often people don't. And they're not sure even. They just know they want something different. So we
Yeah.
work backwards. We look at, okay, well, where in your life do you get those feelings of disempowerment? Once we assess what your starting point is and you start to recognize that, what are those triggers? What are those times in your life? And if from this point, when you're not in it, how would you like to handle those instead? How would you like to feel on the other side of those that's different than how you're feeling now? And so we just start with that. We start with looking at how I know how I don't want to feel. I know who I don't want to be. I know that these are my weak points. How would it feel? What would it look like to be the opposite of that? And then as you do that, and as you start to put that into practice, you'll get clarity. Again, your imagination is an amazing thing. And if you let go of this story that you don't know, what your future self looks like and instead tell a story about how easy it is to see that, because it's driven by my passions, it's very easy to see, then you'll see it a lot better. It's about
Yeah.
what questions are you asking. This is a huge part of the work, is instead of asking why is this not working for me in its various forms, see, you're going to get the answers to the questions you ask.
Yeah. Take me and take the Think community into real time for a minute on a daily discipline. I read a book probably 20 some years ago, and it was called, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was called like Living Your Yoga. I think it was called Living Your Yoga. And it talked about, yoga when you go to a class is one thing, but living your yoga, it's one thing to do it on the mat. It's another thing to bring that breath work to a chaos crisis situation in real time. And so, and one of the things I talked about is just breath work in the moment. And so, kind of educate us a little bit on a daily, maybe ritual or a practice to fall into
Yep.
to kind of get us back to center so we can get out of our autopilot and into our pilot.
Perfect, because that's exactly how I work with people on a daily basis. They do basically the same things every day. It's the consistency aspect of it. The content of it is it a little different, and
Sure.
the content of actually going through our program is only, maybe 10, 15 minutes every day. However, it is about bringing that into your every moment of every day. So the
Mhm.
work we do, the ritual, if you will, helps you to, again, it's all about getting fine tuned on what are my autopilot responses and what would I like them to be. So we start every day with sort of a visualization, maybe 5 or 6 minutes of looking out into your day ahead and going, okay, well, this is what I know is ahead of me. These are the people I'm going to interact with. These are the situations. And this is how I often respond in autopilot, that I know I leave feeling like I could have done better or could have been
Mhm.
better. And so that is the time to rehearse,
Yeah.
literally in your mind with
I like
full
it.
emotion and as realistically as possible, how you would like to be in those situations.
Yeah.
That is doing real things to your brain. It's not just out there in the ether. You're beginning the process of rewiring just by running that over and over rather than the old scenario. And then when
Yeah.
you get into that situation, you're more prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
love that.
that's
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the rehearsal of what you're talking about. Um, Talk to me about, why it's so hard for people, right? I think what you're talking about is really, it's so simple, it's complicated,
yes.
right? So to rewind, to rewire, I think, we could probably talk for 3 hours about the fear, the courage, the triggers, the guilt, all of that. But why is it so hard? And what's one thing people can do to snap out of thinking it's so hard so they can actually take that first step?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned before, every time we've learned anything significantly new in our life, it comes with some discomfort
Yeah.
because we reach the limits of our wiring. We don't know something. We get a little anxious about that, but it drives us into completion. Like when we learned to walk and talk and all those basic things, we made all those mistakes. We had failure after failure, quote unquote, and just did it because it was non negotiable. When it comes to our personal development, we don't make it non negotiable enough. And we also have unrealistic expectations about how long it's going to take to do something and
Yeah.
how many quote unquote failures we have. If the inventors of this world approached inventing things the same way that we approach personal development, we would have nothing, because people get into the mentality of like, well, I tried this, I did it for 14 days, or I went through this program, it didn't work, so it's not going to work for me. And they have to give themselves time to rewire if it's
Yeah.
going to happen. But every time they tell themselves that it didn't work, that's another piece of wiring they're installing, saying things don't work, I've tried everything, nothing works for me. So now
Right.
every time they approach a new thing, they have to get through all of that.
Yeah. And I think we're in a world right now where technology is rewiring our brains. I mean, I think we're fighting with technology. I mean, technology is making us more want more, especially the younger generations want more instant gratification versus delayed gratification. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in their early 20s that say, I'm going to quit my job because of, something very nominal. And so, I think, how do we get people to buy into today delayed gratification?
Well, let's talk about those kids with like on their devices or their games. They want
Right.
instant gratification. However, if they've got a game, for example, that they want to be good at, they will play it over and over and over, hours, days. That's how you rewire.
Yeah.
So their motivation is different. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Angry
they're not,
birds.
there's not a blanket thing about delayed gratification. They're willing to do it if the prize is big enough. So they have to make their future that prize, and it has to be big enough. So they're willing and ready to go through however many iterations of getting there they need.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good. I love it. All right. So let's talk about kind of a step, right? So I know you have a step for people to take as far as a quiz that they can take that will kind of give them and get them on the path.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I talk. It's what I put everybody through that first because it saves tons of time for both of us. I don't have to dig and dig and dig to find out what their wiring is. They take this test, and then we both know, so that then we
Yeah.
can both be aware of the autopilot wiring. So you can take this quiz in 60 seconds. It doesn't cost anything. You just go to tptquiz.com for transformation personality type quiz.com. So tptquiz.com, 60 seconds. You'll have your transformation personality type. There'll be a video that explains this is your type. How does it feel? Does that ring true? And you'll say yes. And then here's what you can do about that. Here's how you take that information and actually help yourself instead of hinder yourself on your rewiring efforts. Use
Yeah.
this to become aware in the moment so that you can make a conscious choice rather than having it be an excuse for just how things are.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you talk about helping yourself. I think, it's to me, it's almost it's amazing how hard it is for people to ask for help. And this is something that they can do to kind of get an inside view on themselves. And I think it's great. Um, Last question before a quick speed round. How does, take me back, I don't know, 30, 40 years to a seed that was planted that gave you the kind of, you know, in hindsight, seed that, got you to where you are today?
Well, so it would have been more like 20, 25 years ago or so. And my whole journey down this path was I was going to be a broadcaster. That was always my goal to
Me
be.
too. I wanted to too. I wanted to be
So
the
I did
next Larry
that.
King. Yeah.
I did that and did all my shtick and was, ha ha, funny. That's what I wanted to do. But then I was in Atlanta. I found myself in Atlanta and I was way low on the totem pole and I couldn't express myself that creatively. So it became very important for me to express myself creatively through the work I did because it's just
Yeah.
too much of your day. And so that journey led me all sorts of places to try to find why can't I find it? Because I was not having success. I was finding myself in careers and jobs and entrepreneurial endeavors that never worked. And that's what got me down the whole metaphysical path in the first place, finding the law of attraction, getting involved with all of that, because logically things should have worked,
Yeah.
but they weren't. So that's when I really realized the power of my thoughts, in essence, my mindset. I wasn't using wiring I wasn't using the term wiring, but I knew it was some programming that was affecting how I was getting results in the world.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And then, one last question. The secret. What's your secret?
What's my
Right. You were
secret?
in the movie The Secret.
Yes.
What's your secret advice for people?
Well, yeah, I don't have any secrets along those lines, but what I really am just saying for those who are fans of The Secret and the law of attraction, I want you to know that just because I'm talking about rewiring doesn't mean I'm not that, but I want to caution you to spend so much time trying to figure out the law of attraction because I promise you it will work without you knowing anything about it if you'll just be the person you're here to be without all the
Yeah.
nonsense going on in your head, which is limiting your ability to take action to
Yeah.
be that person.
I love it. I think that's a great secret because that's something, and I love that you said that because to me, that's kind of for many people hidden in plain sight. And they just sometimes they can't see it until somebody says it. It's
Yeah.
great. All right, quick speed round for you, Bob. Favorite book and why?
Illusions changed my whole perspective by Richard Bach, changed my whole perspective on sort of reality in our minds and all that stuff a long time ago.
I just bought that book because I read whatchamacallit, his last book, and somebody just recommended that book. It's on the top of my bookshelf. So
It's an
and I
easy read. And if
yeah,
you can imagine like a 20 something reading that book, which is what
yeah.
I was 18 or 19 when I first read it. And you'll see why it just like,
All
huh.
right. All right, I'm going to read it. All right, good. I bought it and didn't read it, and I just saw it the other day. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Oh, well, just don't quit. Don't
Yeah,
quit.
good one. And finish this sentence.
Oh, boy.
Somebody who is listening to this, watching this, who is frustrated with their life, feels like what you're saying and what I'm saying doesn't work. They need to.
Realize the unarguable fact that the brain can change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they're not getting the results they want now, they can change their brain and get different results.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason you can't.
Yeah. And the way I would finish that sentence with take a deep breath, and you mentioned this in a way too, and start again, right? Don't quit, don't give up. Right. If it's been, I remember when I was 18 years old, my dad gave me a set of tape sets by Brian Tracy. That's what got me on my journey of where I am today. And it was called The Psychology of Success. And I remember hearing Brian Tracy say, I'm 49 today. If it's been done before, it can be done again. I don't know, I mean, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, but that message has always kind of helped me anytime I see an obstacle in front of me. And that's not what you're talking about today too, right? It's like,
And
if you don't like, yeah.
The more I know about the brain now, the more that I'm looking at that, it makes that statement even more true to me. It's not just a platitude. It doesn't just sound good. It's like, well, of course,
Right.
we can learn. We're capable of learning just about anything. So
Yeah.
it's just about time and commitment.
Right. And I would also say me, you, I mean, and we all need to get out of our own way, and we have to do the work.
Right.
Right. Nothing's easy. Everything you're talking about, I think some people look at it as, it's a way, but the reason people do it is because it takes work.
Yeah.
And people resist what they need to do most. One of my favorite books, which is, have you read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
I've read some of it. Love it.
It's so great, right? So we resist what we need to do most, and then we justify why we don't do it. And so,
And that's wiring.
What'd you say?
That's wiring. How we
Correct.
justify it is unique to all of us, but that's our wiring. And if we can just recognize that we are justifying ourselves out of the results we want, then hopefully that can shake us and wake us up and go, wow, I've got this goofy ass pattern going right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Bob, tell people how they can connect with you.
Take the quiz. It's the best way. You'll learn about all the stuff I'm doing. tptquiz.com. And that will get you in the door and give you something that you can actually use starting today that can help that wake up process occur.
It's great. Think community, time to wake up. Bob Doyle, thanks for carrying a very important message, a message that I carry, you carry. Collectively, we're trying to raise frequency, raise vibration, get people to their highest potential, rewire their brains. Takes time, takes execution, but I appreciate what you're doing, and think community. If Bob can help you, reach out. And Bob, thanks very much. This was a great talk.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.